Hello! Today we are here for a set of book recommendations based on popular books in BookTube, Bookstagram, the book community at large. So first up we have Cursed Bunny, which is a short story collection translated from Korean that has been quite popular this year. It is kind of genre bending, a little bit horror, a little bit sci-fi, fantasy, literary. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. And if you liked that short story collection, I highly recommend the short story collection On the Origin of Species and Other Stories, which is also translated from Korean. Very similar kind of topics discussed. It's a little bit less figurative, it's more concrete, a lot more kind of traditional seeming sci-fi stories, also some fantasy stories, some that would just be maybe mildly speculative. Cursed Bunny, you could read them and not really read into the societal aspects at all, whereas I think On the Origin of Species is a collection that's a little bit more straightforward in the social, cultural, economic analysis. But I think that either one, you could read it with a very like political, social lens, or you could read it just as really interesting and entertaining short stories.
Recitative.
I don't think that's right.
Recitative.
Okay, I just had to look up how to say this, and I guess it's recitative. This is a short story by Toni Morrison that was just republished with a new foreword by Zadie Smith, and it is fantastic. It's definitely been, well, it already pretty much made the rounds on Bookstagram, but it deserves every tiny bit of the praise that it got and much more. It is such a thought-provoking story. So the premise is that you are following two girls who met at around the age of 8. One is black, one is white, and you see them kind of in vignettes throughout their life, and you do not know which girl is black and which girl is white. And because of the way that we are conditioned as a society, we really want to know, and so you're kind of trying to figure out which is which, but you cannot. It really forces you to confront how you think about race. What is race? What are the cultural and social aspects of it? And if you liked this story, I highly recommend the book Passing by Nella Larsen. This is a very short book. This is actually deceptively large because the font is huge on my edition, but this was originally published in 1929, and it is, and again, it is the story of two women who run into each other later in life that knew each other as young girls, and one of them has been passing for white. She's married to a white man and has children that are considered white. Nobody knows that she has African American heritage. The other friend is proudly black. This story also really forces you to think about what is race. If someone can pass for white, what does that mean about how we define whiteness? Not to mention the obvious question of why that's a prize that we as society are, willing to impart privileges based on, but even inside of that, this just really forces you to think about how you think about race, how we as a society think about race, and it was a very interesting story. A lot of people have compared The Vanishing Half to this because it is a very similar premise. I did prefer this one. I didn't dislike The Vanishing Half, but I actually think that this one kind of made me think a lot more than The Vanishing Half did. Next up, we have The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is a long-standing book community darling. That's kind of the original dark academia book, and people really love this, or they really hate it, and I'm kind of in the middle. I thought that this was an entertaining read. I know that there have been a lot of concerns about Donna Tartt as a writer, and I think that those are very valid. I enjoy dark academia. I think it's definitely overhyped, but my number one recommendation, if you like this book, is The Likeness by Tana French. Tana French herself has said that she was inspired by The Secret History in writing this, but I think that it's a very, very well done book and has its own story to tell, unlike some other dark academia books that I have read that I feel like were very, very close copies of The Secret History. So this is actually part of a series. It is the second book in the Dublin Murder Squad series, which is a thriller mystery series by my favorite thriller author of all time. And this is obviously, from the name, set in Dublin, Ireland. You are following two-ish detectives in the murder squad. They have discovered the body of a young woman who was in an academic group in grad school at Trinity. They have to kind of infiltrate this group of young academics in order to figure out what happened to their friend. I thought that this was just the most atmospheric read maybe ever. You get so drawn into the group. I prefer this one greatly to The Secret History. The Overstory by Richard Powers was super successful a couple years ago. I did read and absolutely love this book. It is definitely not without issues. There are a lot of negatives to talk about with this book, but it is one of the most impactful environmental fiction books I have ever read. It is about trees and people who fight for the trees, how our society has kind of failed to value trees. And I just found it so atmospheric, so calming, inspiring. Really, really enjoyed this book, and the book that I would recommend based off of it is actually quite a different book, and that is The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a novella. It is in the Hainish universe. It is not really a series. You do not really have to read any of the other books before this or anything, but essentially the Earth has been, completely devastated environmentally, and like Earthlings have been given another planet to kind of on a probational basis colonize. So they are initially just harvesting lumber, and if it goes well, they are potentially going to be able to colonize this planet for a place to live. There is a native population on the planet, and as you can imagine, based on the attitude of those of us who have destroyed this planet, it doesn't really go very well. There are some really, really upsetting things in this book, so if you have content concerns, I would look those up, but this was such a moving and infuriating and important book. She did write it around the Vietnam War, and you can definitely tell that in the issues that she's confronting, but unfortunately those issues are just as relevant, if not more relevant now. This is probably the Ursula K. Le Guin that I would recommend to most people. I think that it is a wonderful, very quick read and very impactful. Next up, for a nonfiction, the book How to Do Nothing. This was pretty popular a couple years ago, and I did read it. I didn't love it, but I didn't dislike it. I just thought that ultimately it didn't have a ton to say. I don't really remember any of it now, so I think a book that was slightly more impactful for me, but is very much along the same topic lines, is The Art of Being by Erich Fromm. This was actually apparently a chapter that was taken out of the book The Art of Loving, I believe. So it's a very, very short book. I think it's not even really a book. I would highly recommend it if you are able to access it. It is just kind of a philosophical look at being, outside of producing anything, outside of being some sort of cog in some capitalist machine. How can you just exist? And I thought that it was very, very thought-provoking. It is a little bit psychoanalysis-y because it was written in the 1970s by, I believe, a psychoanalyst. Aside from that aspect, I really, really enjoyed it, and I would like to re-listen to it and also check out more of Erich Fromm's work. So for a bit of a classic sci-fi, if you like Foundation, the Foundation series, or Isaac Asimov in general, I would highly recommend the book The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Probably most of the Hainish, universe is also going to be something that you'd enjoy, but specifically The Dispossessed really just reminded me of reading Asimov. I personally enjoyed it a lot more. I have not been shy about how much I don't really love Asimov, but I also do understand why people do. He's so creative. I just personally don't resonate with a lot of the things that he writes. I find his characters kind of insufferable, but The Dispossessed has a very, very similar feel, kind of detached. It's not really about characters. It's not even really about plot. It's about the world, and it's about unpacking all of these ideas about society and about the economy and about how we think about everything around us, the physical world. The Dispossessed has so much to say about capitalism, about consumerism, individualism, anarchy, how you can change society, what the difficulties of building a new society would be, a little bit about technology and how technology can change the day-to-day life of people. I know that a lot of people don't really get into it because there isn't really that character connection and such, but I think if you are someone who enjoys classic sci-fi like Asimov, you will really get into it and enjoy it as much as I did. Lastly, if you like the Neapolitan novels, I have the first 3 here, by Elena Ferrante, my brilliant friend and company, then I highly, highly, highly recommend The Idiot and Either Or by Elif Batuman. These two are kindred spirits from decades and continents apart. Reading them reminds me so much of each other, even though they are very, very different books. Both of these main characters are bright, great at school, likable, basically limitless potential. They are funny and clever, but they are also passive by other people's opinions of them and expectations of them. They are incredibly likely to fall in love with incredibly stupid and very, very not worth it boys. They are just completely unable to get over them, which is by far the most frustrating part of reading both of these series for me, but it is so worth it. This series deals with much heavier topics. There's a lot of violence in these books that is not present here, and these are much funnier. These 2 books are hilarious. I laughed out loud reading them because they are just the driest, most clever, funny things. She had a very different life. I think that Elena might have reached Selin's level of humor if she had had the opportunity. So those are kindred spirit books, 100% in my opinion. I think that if you like one, there is a high probability that you will like the other, so definitely check them out. It turns out someone on Instagram sent me a link to an article where Elif Batuman was talking about how she was reading one of these books while doing the book tour for this or something like that. So it's meta, it's canon that they are linked. So, all right. It is quite warm to film in my apartment in the summertime. I have to close all my windows and turn off the fans. So if you see me getting progressively more rosy in every video, that's what's happening. Thank you for watching. If you have any recommendations based on these or based on any other books, definitely leave them in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.